So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine yourself, now, an individual living within the sturdy, but often grim, walls of a medieval castle, not confidently stepping into a brightly lit, sterile restroom in, say, a modern shopping mall in Los Angeles. California, surrounded by fragrant soaps and plentiful paper products. Instead, picture yourself standing silently, fearfully, amidst the cold, damp stone, grappling with an urgent physiological need, knowing that your only recourse might be a dark, drafty hole in the wall, or a perilous journey to an exposed wooden outhouse perched precariously over a stagnant ditch. Consider yourself a sentinel on night watch in a remote, ancient fortress, where the biting cold and constant threat of attack make even the simplest bodily function a hurried, perilous undertaking, exposing you to the elements and potential enemies alike, or perhaps a scullery maid in a bustling, unsanitary castle kitchen, where the overwhelming stench of refuse and the constant rush of duties mean that even a quick trip to the privy is a hurried, undignified dash, often in full view of others, making personal hygiene a constant, losing battle against pervasive filth, far more immediate and less personally secure than simply using a public restroom at a national park in, say, rural Wyoming. The hushed whispers of the castle at night, once a gentle murmur of daily life, now mingle with the chilling sounds of dripping waste, the pervasive stench of human effluvia, and the unspoken dread of inevitable discomfort. Thick with the pervasive anxiety of a body balanced precariously on the edge of hygienic failure and definitive malodor, this is the pervasive, often terrifying, reality of the perilous privy early castle latrines, where the very essence of answering nature's call was not about convenience or cleanliness, but about basic, often dangerous necessity, transforming a private act into a public ordeal, and revealing a chilling truth that in these fortified, majestic structures, individual comfort and sanitation were utterly secondary to collective defense, making every trip to the bathroom a terrifying gamble and every lingering odor a silent testament to the absolute power of medieval pragmatism over human decency. When you think of a medieval castle, what comes to mind? Towering walls, brave knights, grand feasts, perhaps even a fair maiden or two. But have you ever stopped to consider one of life's most fundamental and often overlooked necessities within those imposing stone structures? That's right, we're talking about how you use the bathroom in a medieval castle. And trust me, it wasn't pretty. It truly sucked to have to relieve yourself in a medieval castle. But it was just a part of daily life. A common historical truth is that early medieval castles often lacked sophisticated plumbing systems, and waste disposal methods were rudimentary, relying on simple chutes or holes in the walls that emptied directly outside or into a moat. Historians still widely debate the precise level of sanitation, and whether the widespread prevalence of disease in medieval castles was directly attributable to these primitive waste disposal methods or to a combination of factors, including poor personal hygiene, crowded conditions, and inadequate medical knowledge. Imagine yourself, then inside the rough-hewn stone walls of a truly ancient castle, perhaps one built by Norman conquerors in what would become, say, rural Pennsylvania, long before the refinements of later centuries. In these earliest castles, the concept of a dedicated, private lavatory was, for the most part, simply non-existent. Forget the idea of a separate room, a designated space like your bathroom now. Instead, you would find yourself facing the perilous privy early castle latrines. These were, in essence, just holes. Simple, undignified, and often quite dangerous. Holes. Picture a rough-cut opening in the stone wall, perhaps just a foot or so wide, often without any sort of seat or enclosure. You'd simply squat or perch, often precariously, over this void, Below you, a sheer, dizzying drop. Now, where did this waste go? In the earliest designs, it often fell directly down the outside of the castle wall, sometimes collecting in a pile at the base. Or, if the castle was built directly over a cliff or river, it would simply drop into the natural abyss. Imagine the sheer lack of privacy, the draft, the biting cold in winter, and the utterly terrifying height. Far more immediate and less personally secure than simply using a composting toilet in a remote cabin in, say, rural Montana. The sheer peril of these early privies cannot be overstated. Firstly, there was the constant risk of falling. Imagine trying to navigate a dark, slippery stone passage in the middle of the night, perhaps after a few too many flagons of ale, only to find yourself precariously balanced over a deadly drop. One wrong step, one dizzy spell, and your evening ablutions could become your final, undignified descent. Not exactly the kind of quiet contemplation you get on a modern porcelain throne in, say, suburban San Diego, California. Secondly, there was the stench. Oh, the stench. Without any water to flush, and with waste accumulating either directly outside the wall or in a shallow pit below. The smell would have been omnipresent, particularly in warmer months. It would have permeated the very stone of the castle, wafting through corridors, seeping into living quarters, and settling in your clothes and hair. Imagine trying to enjoy a lavish feast in the Great Hall, only to be constantly assaulted by the pungent aroma of human waste. A far cry from the subtle air fresheners you might use in your own home in, say, suburban Miami, Florida. This wasn't just a faint odor, it was a powerful, oppressive miasma that would have fundamentally shaped the sensory experience of living in a medieval castle. It truly sucked to live with that constant smell, a fascinating, yet rarely discussed detail about the perilous privy. Early castle latrines is the curious phenomenon of the forgotten coin drop, where, despite the obvious dangers, some castle residents would occasionally drop small coins or trinkets down the privy shaft, not as an overt act of carelessness, but as a deeply personal, clandestine attempt to send a message to someone below, test the depth of the shaft, or even perhaps as a superstitious offering to ward off bad luck, transforming a mundane act of waste disposal into a poignant, almost rebellious, moment of covert communication or desperate superstition, and a silent, unspoken acknowledgement of the human desire to connect or control. Even in the most unlikely and unhygienic of places, imagine yourself, a nervous guard, hearing the faint clink of something small echoing down the shaft at night. A deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the hidden lives within these grim stone walls. It truly sucked to have to retrieve anything dropped down there. These early latrines were rarely enclosed rooms. More often, they were simply projections or recesses in the wall, sometimes with a wooden seat, but often just a hole cut into a stone slab. Privacy, as we understand it, was largely a foreign concept. You would likely be sharing these facilities with others, or at least be within earshot of them. Imagine the sheer awkwardness, the lack of personal space, far removed from the solitary confinement of a modern bathroom in, say, a bustling city like San Francisco, California. The very location of these privies was dictated by defense. They were built into thick outer walls, often in towers or less vulnerable sections, to prevent enemy infiltration. Their primary purpose was function over form, and certainly over comfort or hygiene. You wouldn't find any thought given to ventilation or proper waste management, beyond simply getting it out of the immediate living space. Historians still widely debate the precise frequency of accidents or deaths directly attributed to falls from these perilous early privies, and whether the primary cause was often drunkenness, darkness, or simply the inherent dangers of the design itself. Given the lack of detailed historical records, the rudimentary nature of these early castle latrines set the stage for many of the hygienic challenges that plagued medieval life. This foundational approach to waste disposal, simply moving it from inside to immediately outside, created persistent problems of smell, disease, and vermin. The pervasive stench was a constant companion, attracting flies and other insects, which then carried diseases into the castle's living areas and kitchens. This wasn't just an unpleasant smell, it was a direct threat to health, creating a constant low-level war against bacteria and pests that were largely invisible and utterly misunderstood. So, while the majestic appearance of medieval castles might evoke images of grandeur, it's crucial to remember the gritty, often disgusting, reality of daily life within their walls. The simple act of using the bathroom was a stark reminder of the harsh realities, the lack of privacy, and the constant battle against filth that characterized the medieval experience. The perilous privy. Early castle latrines paints a vivid, if unpleasant, picture of how even the most basic human needs were met in a world without modern conveniences, transforming a private necessity into a public challenge, and offering a chilling testament to the ingenuity and sheer hardiness of those who built and lived in these monumental, yet fundamentally unsanitary structures, often at the agonizing cost of constant discomfort, pervasive odors, and an ever-present threat of disease. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own clean, private bathroom, your profound appreciation for flush toilets, and the secure knowledge that your waste is efficiently whisked away. Remember the medieval castle dweller, precariously perched over a gaping hole, their daily relief a perilous journey into the void, a chilling testament to the awful experience of using the bathroom in a medieval castle. Let's gently return from the stark, perilous reality of the perilous privy early castle latrines, where you, a modern person, grimaced at the thought of those crude, dangerous holes in the wall. If Chapter 1 set the stage for rudimentary waste disposal, tonight we'll explore a slightly more refined, yet still undeniably medieval solution: the specialized, often multi-purpose yacht closet that became a hallmark of later castles. We're going to explore the stark, often surprising, reality of garderobe grandeur, the hanging latrine, contemplating how these projecting architectural features, ostensibly designed for convenience, also served a hidden purpose beyond simple waste disposal, transforming a mundane necessity into a surprisingly clever, if still odorous, piece of castle engineering, and revealing a chilling truth that even in an age without modern sanitation, medieval builders sought ingenious, if often unhygienic, ways to integrate essential functions into their formidable defenses, making every stone protrusion a testament to their pragmatic cleverness and every lingering smell a silent reminder of their enduring challenges. Imagine yourself, now, an individual living within the more developed, but still distinctly medieval, walls of a 13th century castle, not confidently stepping into a brightly lit, climate-controlled walk-in closet in, say, a modern luxury home in Beverly Hills. California, filled with cedar planks and moth repellents for your finest garments. Instead, picture yourself standing silently, fearfully, amidst the cold, damp stone, grappling with an urgent physiological need, knowing that your only recourse might be a small, dark recess in the wall, with a wooden seat, a direct drop, and a pervasive, lingering odor that hinted at its dual function. Consider yourself a noble in a bustling, often overcrowded, medieval keep, where even the semblance of privacy for personal functions is a hard-won luxury, often shared or in close proximity to others, and your finest woolen garments hang perilously close to the source of the castle's pervasive stench. Or perhaps a chamberlain meticulously managing the wardrobe of a powerful lord, constantly battling the damp, the vermin, and the lingering effluvia that threaten to spoil expensive fabrics, forcing you to acknowledge the constant struggle against environmental degradation within the seemingly grand halls. Far more immediate and less personally secure than simply using a cedar chest in a well-ventilated, pest-free modern apartment in, say, suburban Charlotte, North Carolina. The hushed whispers of the castle at night, once a gentle murmur of daily life, now mingle with the chilling sounds of dripping waste far below, The pervasive, sickly sweet scent of human effluvia and decaying fabrics, and the unspoken dread of inevitable discomfort, thick with the pervasive anxiety of a body, and its possessions balanced precariously on the edge of hygienic failure and definitive malodor. This is the pervasive, often surprising reality of garderobe grandeur. The hanging latrine, where the very essence of answering nature's call was not about convenience or cleanliness, but about pragmatic multifunctionality, transforming a private act into a surprisingly integrated piece of castle life, and revealing a chilling truth that in these fortified, majestic structures, individual comfort and sanitation were utterly secondary to clever engineering, making every trip to the bathroom a testament to medieval pragmatism and every lingering odor a silent reminder of their enduring hygienic challenges. As medieval castle design evolved, particularly from the 12th century onwards, so too did the methods of waste disposal. Gone, or at least less common, were the simple, perilous holes in the wall of the earliest keeps. Builders began to integrate more structured, albeit still primitive, facilities. This brings us to the surprisingly elegant and often misunderstood feature known as the garderobe. This wasn't quite grandeur in the modern sense of a lavish bathroom, but it was certainly a step up from a simple void. And yes, it literally means wardrobe in French. It truly sucked to use a bathroom that was also a closet, but it was clever for its time. A common historical truth is that medieval garderobes were rudimentary latrines built into castle walls, often featuring a vertical shaft that discharged waste outside, and were sometimes used to hang clothes within the shaft, as the ammonia fumes were believed to deter fleas and moths. Historians still widely debate the actual effectiveness of using garderobes for pest control, and whether the primary motivation was truly pest deterrence or simply a convenient place to hang garments where they were exposed to airflow and away from the main living quarters. Imagine yourself in a slightly more refined medieval castle, perhaps one built in the 13th or 14th century in what would become, say, rural New England, where defensive engineering had progressed beyond mere brute force. You're no longer just squatting over an open hole. Instead, you'd find a small, often narrow chamber built into the thickness of the outer wall, known as a garderobe. These were typically accessed from a lord's or lady's private chambers, or sometimes from a main hall or gallery. Inside, you'd find a simple wooden seat or a stone slab with a hole cut into it. This hole led down a vertical shaft that extended all the way through the castle wall and discharged its contents outside, often directly into the moat, a river or a cesspit at the base of the wall. This design, while still far from modern plumbing, offered a degree of privacy and protection from the elements that earlier privies lacked. Imagine the luxury of a wooden seat over a mere hole, a small but significant comfort compared to a completely exposed and precarious perch. But here's where the wardrobe part comes in, and it's a detail that often surprises people. The term garderobe likely came into use because these small chambers also served a secondary, surprisingly practical purpose. The shafts, constantly exposed to the airflow from outside and filled with the ammonia fumes rising from the human waste, created a distinctly pungent atmosphere. Medieval people, lacking our understanding of hygiene and pest control, believed that the strong, acrid smell of ammonia would deter fleas, moths, and other vermin from infesting their precious woolen and fur garments. So they would hang their clothes, particularly their expensive winter cloaks and furs, inside the garderobe shaft. Imagine the unique blend of odors in such a space, the pervasive scent of stale urine and feces, mingling with the heavy, musky smell of wool and perhaps faint hints of the herbs and spices used to scent clothes and mask odors. It's not exactly a cedar-lined closet in, say, a modern luxury apartment in San Antonio. Texas. You'd step in, take care of your business, and then perhaps reach for your cloak, which now carried the distinct, if oddly effective, aroma of eau de latrine. It truly sucked to have your best clothes smell like that, but hey, at least they weren't moth-eaten. A fascinating yet rarely discussed. Detail about garderobe grandeur. The hanging latrine is the curious phenomenon of the garderobe key, where, in some larger, more organized castles, specific garderobes might have been locked or required a key for access, not as an overt measure of security for the waist, but as a deeply personal, clandestine attempt to restrict access to certain individuals, control the flow of traffic in private quarters, or even to prevent unauthorized dumping of other refuse into the shaft. Transforming a simple toilet into a nuanced instrument of castle management and a silent, unspoken acknowledgement of the human desire for order and control. Even in the most unsavory of places, imagine yourself, a noble fumbling in the dark for a specific key, hearing the faint jingle as you finally unlock your private privy, a deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the hidden social hierarchies even within the most basic castle functions. It truly sucked to wait for a key to use the bathroom. While the garderobe offered more privacy than its predecessors, it was by no means a bastion of comfort or cleanliness. The shafts, while directing waste away from the immediate user, still funneled it to a collection point, often a cesspit at the base of the castle wall. These pits would periodically need to be emptied, a truly foul and dangerous task for the unfortunate gong farmers. As we'll discuss in a later chapter, until then, the waste would simply accumulate, attracting rats, flies, and diseases. The effectiveness of the ammonia as a pest deterrent is a subject of ongoing debate among historians and historical reenactors. While ammonia does have some repellent properties, it's unlikely to have been a highly effective long-term solution against determined infestations. However, the belief in its effectiveness was clearly strong enough to integrate this dual function into castle design. It's a prime example of medieval pragmatism, using available resources, even foul ones, to solve practical problems. Historians still widely debate the actual chemical properties of medieval waste and its ammonia content, and whether the concentrations were sufficient to genuinely deter all types of pests from infesting clothing, or if the perceived benefit was largely psychological or anecdotal based on the limited scientific understanding of the time. Moreover, the architectural design of garderobes could sometimes be a strategic weakness during a siege. While the vertical shaft protected the user, it also presented a potential point of entry or a vulnerability that could be exploited by besiegers. They might attempt to climb up the shaft or, more commonly, use it as a point to introduce noxious fumes or burning materials into the castle, causing chaos and discomfort for the defenders. Imagine the horror of smelling smoke or toxic fumes rising from your privy, knowing your place of private relief had become a conduit for enemy attack. This transforms a simple toilet into a point of profound strategic vulnerability. Garderobe grandeur. The hanging latrine paints a more nuanced picture of medieval castle sanitation, revealing a fascinating blend of architectural ingenuity and rudimentary hygiene. It shows us how builders tried to address a universal human need within the constraints of defensive structures and limited technology, transforming a basic necessity into a surprisingly multifunctional, if still deeply odorous. Part of daily castle life, it offers a unique insight into the pragmatic, sometimes shockingly crude, realities of living in a fortified world, where comfort and cleanliness were secondary to defense and survival, making every stone-built privy a silent testament to medieval adaptability and every lingering smell a pungent reminder of their enduring battle against filth. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own clean, private bathroom, your profound appreciation for modern plumbing, and the secure knowledge that your clothes are safely stored away from unsavory fumes. Remember the medieval castle dweller, hanging their finest garments in their garderobe. Their daily relief a surprisingly integrated, yet still deeply unpleasant, part of their stone-walled existence. A chilling testament to the awful experience of using the bathroom in a medieval castle. Let's gently return from the surprisingly clever, yet still undeniably pungent reality of garderobe grandeur, the hanging latrine, where you, a modern person, grimaced at the thought of clothes being freshened by ammonia fumes. If Chapter 2 explored the multifunctional privy, Tonight we'll delve deeper into the very architecture of waste removal itself, the concealed vertical channels that carried human effluvia away, but often not far enough. We're going to explore the stark, often horrifying, reality of the privy shaft. A vertical journey down, contemplating how these hidden conduits, while seemingly efficient, became breeding grounds for vermin and disease, and sometimes even points of vulnerability, transforming a simple architectural feature into a continuous source of filth and a chilling reminder of medieval engineering's limitations. Revealing a chilling truth that even in these imposing, majestic structures, the constant challenge of waste management created pervasive, unseen dangers, making every vertical drop a testament to both ingenuity and unavoidable squalor. Imagine yourself now, an individual living within the damp, echoing passages of a medieval castle, not confidently watching a modern plumbing system efficiently whisk waste away through sealed pipes in, say, a sprawling suburban home in Denver, Colorado, where waste is unseen and forgotten. Instead, picture yourself standing silently, fearfully, amidst the cold, damp stone, perhaps near a persistent, unsettling draft, knowing that somewhere hidden within these very walls, a constant dark stream of human waste is making its unseen descent, attracting untold horrors. Consider yourself a castle guard on patrol, constantly vigilant not just for human enemies, but for the rustling sounds of rats and other vermin emanating from hidden recesses. Knowing these pests thrive in the unseen filth that permeates the very foundations of your fortress, or perhaps a scullery worker, constantly battling swarms of flies and the lingering, sickly sweet stench that seems to waft up from the very stones, forcing you to acknowledge the pervasive, unseen struggle against disease and decay that underpins daily life within the seemingly grand halls. Far more immediate and less personally secure than simply dealing with a minor drain clog in a modern, well-maintained apartment in, say, bustling Boston, Massachusetts. The hushed echoes of the castle, once a comforting sound of distant activity, now mingle with the chilling, unseen sounds of dripping waste, the pervasive hum of insects, and the unspoken dread of inevitable disease. Thick with the pervasive anxiety of a constant, unseen flow of filth threatening to undermine both health and comfort. This is the pervasive, often terrifying, reality of the privy shaft. A vertical journey down, where the very essence of architectural efficiency was not about comprehensive sanitation, but about simple, raw expulsion, transforming a mundane necessity into a profound, often disgusting hidden challenge, and revealing a chilling truth that in these fortified, majestic structures, unseen waste management created pervasive, unseen dangers, making every vertical conduit a testament to medieval pragmatism, and every hidden drop a silent reminder of their enduring struggle against filth. We've explored the hole in the wall and the wardrobe privy, but how did the waste actually leave the castle? This brings us to a fundamental, yet often overlooked piece of medieval castle engineering. The privy shaft. A vertical journey down, these were the unsung, and certainly unsmelled, heroes or villains. Depending on your perspective of medieval sanitation, they represented a straightforward, gravity-fed solution to a universal problem. But they came with their own set of profound issues. It truly sucked to have these shafts running through your home. But there wasn't really another option. A common historical truth is that medieval castle privies typically utilized vertical shafts, or chutes, built within the thickness of the walls, which transported waste downwards to either a cesspit, a moat, or directly outside the castle walls. Historians still widely debate the precise consistency and maintenance of these shafts, and whether they were regularly cleared, or if waste often accumulated within them, potentially blocking the flow and leading to even greater unsanitary conditions within the castle. Imagine standing inside a medieval castle, perhaps one that now stands as a peaceful ruin in, say, rural Scotland, or a well-preserved historical site in upstate New York. You might notice the thick, imposing walls, sometimes 10 or 15 feet deep. It's within these very walls that the privy shafts were constructed. They were, in essence, narrow, vertical tunnels, usually no more than 2 or 3 feet wide, often tapering slightly as they descended. They ran from the privy opening on an upper floor, perhaps from the Lord's chamber, or a main hall's garderobe, as we recalled from garderobe grandeur in Chapter 2, straight down to the base of the castle. The construction of these shafts was a feat of medieval engineering in its own right. They had to be carefully built into the masonry, ensuring stability and preventing collapse. Their primary design feature was simplicity gravity. Waste simply dropped down, hopefully exiting the castle at the bottom. This was the most efficient way to remove human waste from the living areas without any complex plumbing or water systems. However, these shafts were far from perfect. Firstly, there was the constant issue of clogging. Imagine what happens when you're not just dealing with human waste, but also possibly food scraps, straw used as early toilet paper, or even discarded objects. Over time, these shafts could become partially or fully blocked, leading to a buildup of waste within the walls. This would only exacerbate the stench and attract even more vermin. The smell. Already a problem, as we noted in the perilous privy in Chapter 1, would become unbearable. Trying to unclog one of these would have been a truly foul, dangerous, and unenviable task. It truly sucked to have a clogged privy shaft in a medieval castle. Secondly, these shafts became superhighways for vermin. Rats, mice, cockroaches, and a myriad of other unspeakable creatures would have thrived in these dark, damp, and perpetually waste-filled tunnels. They could easily climb up and down the shafts, gaining access to every level of the castle, from the dungeon to the Lord's private chambers. Imagine trying to sleep at night, hearing the unsettling scratching and scurrying sounds coming from inside your very walls, knowing what horrors were lurking just inches away. This wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a constant source of disease vectors, carrying filth and bacteria from the cesspit directly into the living and eating areas. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed detail about the privy shaft. A vertical journey down is the curious phenomenon of the whispered messages, where, despite the obvious unsanitary conditions, some castle residents, particularly those in isolated upper chambers, might occasionally attempt to send messages or small sealed packages down the privy shaft, relying on the slim chance that someone below might retrieve them, not as an overt communication method, which was dangerous and unreliable, but as a deeply personal, clandestine attempt to relay information in a highly surveilled environment, transforming a mundane waste chute into a poignant, almost desperate conduit of covert communication and a silent, unspoken acknowledgement of the human desire to connect or scheme. Even in the most unlikely and unhygienic of places, imagine yourself, a prisoner, hearing a faint rustle in the privy shaft and finding a tiny, damp scroll. A deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the hidden lives and desperate measures within these grim stone walls. It truly sucked to rely on such a method for communication. Moreover, while privy shafts were a solution for removing waste, they didn't solve the problem of where it ultimately went. As we'll discuss further, it often ended up in the moat or a cesspit, creating a new set of problems. The shafts merely facilitated the transfer of filth from inside to immediately outside, rather than truly disposing of it. Another often overlooked issue with privy shafts was their potential as a strategic vulnerability during sieges. While they were designed to be discreet, a determined besieging force might attempt to exploit them. Imagine an enemy soldier trying to scale a privy shaft, hoping to gain a stealthy entry into the castle. Or, more commonly, attackers might try to introduce noxious fumes, burning materials, or even disease-ridden carcasses down the shaft, aiming to debilitate or terrorize the castle's defenders. The very conduits designed for hygiene could become conduits for attack, transforming a seemingly innocuous architectural detail into a point of profound strategic weakness. This turned a simple toilet into a potential weapon of war, not for you, but against you. Historians still widely debate the actual number of successful infiltrations or significant damage caused by enemies exploiting privy shafts during sieges, and whether these attempts were more often psychological warfare or genuinely effective military tactics, given the inherent difficulties and dangers involved. The construction and maintenance of these shafts were perpetual challenges for medieval castle builders and residents. They had to be robust enough to handle the constant flow of waste, yet narrow enough not to compromise the structural integrity of the thick castle walls. And when they clogged, which they inevitably did, the task of clearing them was beyond unpleasant, and it was a hazardous, nauseating endeavor that few would willingly undertake. The privy shaft, a vertical journey down, provides a grim yet fascinating look into the unseen infrastructure of medieval castles. It reveals how even the most basic human needs necessitated complex, if crude, engineering solutions, and how these solutions, while effective at a fundamental level, introduced a host of new problems related to hygiene, pests, and even military vulnerability. It offers a unique insight into the pragmatic, sometimes shockingly unsanitary, realities of living in a fortified world, where the constant battle against filth was fought not just on the surface, but deep within the very stone of the castle, making every hidden shaft a testament to medieval ingenuity and every unseen drop a pungent reminder of their enduring struggle against pervasive squalor. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own clean, private bathroom, your profound appreciation for modern plumbing, and the secure knowledge that your waste is efficiently whisked away through sealed pipes. Remember the medieval castle dweller, constantly aware of the unseen vertical journey of filth within their walls. A chilling testament to the awful experience of using the bathroom in a medieval castle. Let's gently return from the unseen, yet undeniably gross, reality of the privy shaft, a vertical journey down where you, a modern person, grimaced at the thought of waste cascading within castle walls. If Chapter 3 explored the hidden conduits, tonight we'll confront the chilling, tangible consequence of medieval waste disposal. Its ultimate destination, often right outside the castle, becoming a breeding ground for far more than just bad smells. We're going to explore the stark, often horrifying, reality of moat menace waste disposal and disease, contemplating how the very defenses of a castle, like its encircling moat, could become a stagnant, disease-ridden cesspool, transforming a strategic barrier into a biohazard, and revealing a chilling truth that in these imposing, majestic structures, the constant challenge of waste management created pervasive, visible dangers, making every drop of effluent a testament to unavoidable squalor, and every ripple in the moat a silent carrier of illness. Imagine yourself now, an individual living within the damp, echoing passages of a medieval castle, not confidently observing a modern waste treatment plant efficiently processing sewage far from your home in, say, a sprawling suburban community in Orlando, Florida, where waste is unseen and rendered harmless. Instead, picture yourself standing silently, fearfully, amidst the cold, damp stone, perhaps near a window overlooking the castle's moat, knowing that its dark, murky waters are not just a defensive barrier, but a foul repository of human and animal waste, teeming with unseen threats. Consider yourself a sentinel on the battlements, constantly vigilant not just for besieging armies, but for the pervasive, sickly sweet stench rising from the stagnant water below, knowing that every breath carries the risk of unseen contagion from the very defenses meant to protect you. Or perhaps a chamberlain arranging a feast in the Great Hall, constantly battling the swarms of flies attracted by the putrid odors emanating from the moat, forcing you to acknowledge the pervasive, unseen struggle against disease and decay that permeates daily life within the seemingly grand halls. Even in the presence of ostensible luxury, far more immediate and less personally secure than simply dealing with a backyard mosquito problem in a well-maintained suburban home in, say, bustling Phoenix, Arizona. The hushed echoes of the castle, once a comforting sound of distant activity, now mingle with the chilling, omnipresent smell of putrefaction, the insistent buzz of insects, and the unspoken dread of inevitable plague, thick with the pervasive anxiety of a constant, visible source of filth, threatening to undermine both health and comfort. This is the pervasive, often terrifying, reality of moat menace, waste disposal, and disease, where the very essence of castle defense was not about comprehensive sanitation, but about simple, raw expulsion, transforming a strategic barrier into a profound, often disgusting, hidden challenge, and revealing a chilling truth that in these fortified, majestic structures, waste management created pervasive, visible dangers, making every stagnant pool a testament to medieval pragmatism, and every ripple a silent reminder of their enduring struggle against filth. We've followed the journey of waste from the privy hole to the vertical shaft. But where did it finally end up? Often it made its grand, rather disgusting, exit directly into the castle's most prominent defensive feature, the moat. This brings us to moat menace, waste disposal, and disease, a chapter dedicated to the grim reality of using a vital part of castle defense as a giant, open-air toilet. It truly sucked to live with a moat that was also a sewer, but it was a common, if utterly unsanitary, practice. A common historical truth is that medieval castle moats, while primarily defensive features, often served as convenient receptacles for human and animal waste discharged from the castle's garderobes and other refuse, contributing significantly to unsanitary conditions and the spread of disease within and around the fortress. Historians still widely debate the precise impact of these unsanitary moats on the overall health of castle inhabitants, and whether they were a primary vector for major epidemics like the Black Death, or if their contribution was more localized and chronic. Imagine standing on the battlements of a medieval castle, perhaps one now beautifully restored in, say, the heart of rural Kentucky, or a well-preserved historical site in central California. You look down, not into clear, sparkling water, but into a murky, greenish-brown expanse. This is the moat. And if you lived in a medieval castle, it was often little more than a giant, stagnant sewer. All that waste we discussed in the privy shafts, remember that vertical journey from the privy shaft in Chapter 3 and from the earlier, more perilous holes. A chilling thought from the perilous privy in Chapter 1 had to go somewhere. The simplest solution was to direct it out of the castle walls and into the encircling moat. This was seen as a pragmatic, if unhygienic, way to get rid of it. You wouldn't find any thought given to modern waste treatment, or even basic sewage systems like those you might find in a small rural town in, say, Nebraska. The consequences of this practice were predictably dire for sanitation and health. A moat filled with human and animal waste, discarded food scraps, and general refuse would quickly become a putrid, anaerobic environment. The water would be stagnant, thick with organic matter, and teeming with pathogenic bacteria. The stench from such a moat would have been unbearable, particularly in warmer weather. Imagine a powerful, pervasive odor of decay and putrefaction wafting up and permeating every corner of the castle. It would have been a constant, assaulting presence, far worse than the smell of a forgotten garbage bin on a hot summer day in, say, suburban Detroit, Michigan. This wasn't just unpleasant, it was a constant reminder of the filth that surrounded the inhabitants. But the smell was only the beginning of the menace. The stagnant, waste-filled water of the moat provided an ideal breeding ground for insects, especially flies and mosquitoes. Flies, attracted by the decaying organic matter, would swarm around the moat, then inevitably fly into the castle through open windows, doorways, and even the privy shafts themselves. These flies would then land on food, on people, and on surfaces, effectively transferring bacteria and pathogens from the raw sewage directly into the castle's living and eating areas. This was a direct, constant vector for disease. Imagine trying to eat your dinner in the Great Hall, constantly swatting away flies that had just landed in the human waste just outside the window. It truly sucked to dine with such unsavory companions. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed detail about moat-menace waste. Disposal and disease is the curious phenomenon of the floating telltales, where, during sieges, besieging armies would sometimes deliberately observe the contents of the castle moat, not just for tactical information, but to gauge the health and morale of the defenders based on the type and quantity of waste discharged from the castle's privies, transforming a grim repository into a silent, unspoken barometer of the besieged condition and a chilling testament to the ingenuity of intelligence gathering, even in the most unsavory of circumstances. Imagine yourself, a scout in a besieging army, subtly observing the stream of effluvia from a distant castle, gleaning vital information about its defenders' well-being, a deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the hidden dynamics of medieval warfare. It truly sucked to have your personal health become a strategic data point for the enemy. Mosquitoes, too, would thrive in the stagnant waters, acting as vectors for diseases like malaria, which, while not always fatal, could severely debilitate a castle's garrison and inhabitants. The close proximity of such a breeding ground for disease would have significantly contributed to the overall poor health and high mortality rates within medieval castles. Beyond flies and mosquitoes, the contaminated moat water would attract rats and other vermin, which carried fleas, which in turn carried diseases like the bubonic plague. While the Black Death was a complex phenomenon, the unsanitary conditions of castle moats certainly would not have helped in containing its spread. The connection between filth, vermin, and disease was largely misunderstood in the medieval period, but the consequences were painfully clear. You'd be living side by side with unseen killers, unaware of their true nature. Historians still widely debate the precise role of castle moats in the transmission of major epidemics, compared to other factors like trade routes and population density, and whether the primary cause of disease outbreaks within castles was more attributable to the general unsanitary living conditions, or specifically to the contaminated water of the moats. During times of siege, the moat's role as a waste dump could even be exploited as a crude form of biological warfare. Besieging armies might catapult disease-ridden carcasses, human excrement, or other putrid materials into the castle, hoping to spread disease among the defenders. Conversely, a castle under siege might find its own moat becoming a source of sickness from within, further weakening its ability to resist. This transformed a defensive feature into a potential instrument of disease, or a source of self-inflicted harm. Moat, menace, waste, disposal, and disease paints a grim, yet crucial picture of medieval castle life. It reminds us that even the most formidable structures, built for defense and power, were constantly battling fundamental problems of sanitation. The practice of using moats as sewers illustrates the stark difference between medieval and modern understanding of public health and hygiene. It offers a unique insight into the pragmatic, sometimes shockingly unsanitary, realities of living in a fortified world, where basic human needs created profound, often invisible dangers, making every stagnant pool of waste a testament to medieval pragmatism, and every ripple a silent reminder of their enduring struggle against pervasive squalor. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own clean, fresh-smelling home, your profound appreciation for modern sanitation, and the secure knowledge that your local lake or river is not also your sewage system. Remember the medieval castle dweller, constantly assailed by the stench and disease emanating from their own defensive moat. A chilling testament to the awful experience of using the bathroom in a medieval castle. Let's gently return from the putrid, disease-ridden reality of moat menace, waste disposal, and disease. Were you a modern person, grimaced at the thought of moats brimming with effluvia? If Chapter 4 explored the ultimate unsanitary destination of castle waste, tonight we'll narrow our focus to a more personal, intimate aspect of medieval hygiene, particularly prevalent during the long, dark hours. We're going to explore the stark, often surprisingly mundane, reality of chamber pot chronicles' nightly necessities, contemplating how the ubiquitous chamber pot, a simple ceramic or metal vessel, became an indispensable yet often overlooked tool for personal relief within the confines of a castle. transforming a basic physiological need into a routine, if still unhygienic. Part of daily and nightly life, and revealing a chilling truth that even in these grand, fortified structures, the absence of modern plumbing meant a constant, often immediate interaction with one's own waste, making every pot a testament to pragmatic necessity and every morning's chore a silent reminder of enduring unsanitary conditions. Imagine yourself now, an individual tucked away in a small, drafty chamber within a medieval castle, not confidently heading to a brightly lit, heated bathroom with a modern toilet in, say, a cozy suburban home in Minneapolis. Minnesota, where convenience and cleanliness are effortless. Instead, picture yourself lying in bed, feeling the insistent call of nature in the deep of night, knowing that your only immediate recourse is a cold, ceramic pot hidden beneath your bed, its contents waiting to be emptied in the morning, and its lingering odor a constant companion. Consider yourself a noble in a secluded tower room, where the thought of a long, treacherous walk to a distant garderobe in the dead of night, perhaps through unlit corridors filled with lurking shadows, makes the humble chamber pot a far more appealing, if still somewhat undignified, option for urgent relief, or perhaps a servant, responsible for emptying a multitude of these malodorous vessels each morning, constantly battling the pervasive stench and the risk of spills as you navigate the crowded, uneven floors of the castle, forcing you to acknowledge the sheer volume of human waste generated daily and the endless, thankless task of its removal, far more immediate and less personally secure than simply flushing a toilet and moving on with your day in a modern, well-ventilated apartment in, say, bustling San Antonio, Texas. The hushed whispers of the sleeping castle, once a comforting sound of distant quietude, now mingle with the chilling clink of ceramic on stone, the pervasive, sickly sweet odor of stale urine, and the unspoken dread of an overflowing vessel, thick with the pervasive anxiety of a body's basic needs clashing with the harsh realities of medieval hygiene. This is the pervasive, often mundane, reality of Chamberpot Chronicles' nightly necessities, where the very essence of private relief was not about comprehensive sanitation, but about immediate practical convenience, transforming a personal act into a profound, often disgusting daily ritual, and revealing a chilling truth that in these fortified, majestic structures, the absence of plumbing meant constant, intimate interaction with one's own effluvia, making every pot a testament to pragmatic necessity and every morning's chore a silent reminder of enduring unsanitary conditions. While we've explored the fixed structures for waste disposal, the perilous privies, the garderobes, and the unsanitary moats, what about those moments when a sudden call of nature couldn't wait for a trip to a designated spot? Or, more specifically, what about the deep of night, when venturing through dark, cold, and potentially dangerous castle corridors to reach a privy was simply not feasible or safe? This brings us to the ubiquitous, yet often unglamorous, solution that permeated every level of medieval society, from king to commoner, the chamber pot. And tonight, we delve into the Chamberpot Chronicles' nightly necessities. It truly sucked to use a chamber pot, but it was an undeniable reality for everyone in a medieval castle. A common historical truth is that chamber pots were widely used throughout medieval castles and homes for immediate personal relief, especially during the night, as fixed latrines were often inconveniently located or unsafe to access in the dark, leading to a daily chore of emptying these vessels, often directly out of windows or into designated collection areas. Historians still widely debate the precise prevalence and social acceptance of simply emptying chamber pots directly into streets or out of windows in various medieval periods and regions, and whether this practice was seen as universally acceptable or as a sign of poor hygiene among the lower classes. Imagine yourself, now, in a small, drafty chamber within a medieval castle, perhaps one in what would become, say, rural Virginia, nestled deep within the rolling hills. You're nestled under thick wool blankets, trying to keep warm as the chill of the stone walls seeps in. Then the undeniable urge hits. What do? You certainly don't have a modern bathroom a few steps away. Instead, you reach under your bed, or perhaps into a small nearby cabinet, and pull out a chamber pot. These humble vessels were typically made of ceramic, pottery, or sometimes even metal for the wealthier elite. They were designed to be portable and easily accessible for immediate personal needs. Their primary advantage was convenience. You didn't have to brave the cold, the dark, or the potential dangers of the castle at night to relieve yourself. You could simply do your business right there in your room, or at least in a small, private corner of it. Imagine the sheer relief of not having to trek through a drafty, unlit castle corridor in the dead of night just to use the loo. That's a small win, even if it meant a less than pleasant morning. The nightly use of chamber pots meant that every morning across the entire castle, there was a collective task emptying them. This was a daily ritual, performed by servants, pages, or even the inhabitants themselves if they were of lower status. The contents of these pots, urine and feces, would then need to be disposed of. And this is where things get truly medieval. Often, the easiest and most common method of disposal was simply to empty the contents out of a window. Imagine, in the early morning light, servants walking through the castle, collecting these brimming pots, and then simply tossing their contents out into the castle grounds below, or into a designated collection area. Sometimes, if the window overlooked a street or public path in a town castle. For instance, the cry of "Gardez-l'eau," from the French "Gardez-l'eau." Watch out for the water might have been shouted as a warning before a cascade of human waste hit the ground. A truly charming way to start your day, especially if you were an unsuspecting pedestrian. It truly sucked to be on the receiving end of that. A fascinating yet rarely discussed detail about Chamber Pot Chronicles' nightly necessities is the curious phenomenon of the perfumed privy, where, despite the pervasive odors, some wealthier medieval nobles or their servants would attempt to subtly mask the stench of chamber pots by placing small sachets of dried herbs like lavender or rosemary, fragrant spices, or even small bowls of civet or musk-expensive animal secretions near or within the pots. Not as an overt solution to the problem, but as a deeply personal, clandestine attempt to maintain a veneer of luxury and civility amidst the squalor, transforming a mundane necessity into a poignant, almost desperate act of sensory denial and a silent, unspoken acknowledgement of the human desire for comfort and refinement, even in the most unhygienic of circumstances. Imagine yourself a visiting dignitary, catching a faint, incongruous scent of rose petals mingling with the undeniable odor of stale urine as you enter a lord's private chamber. A deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the hidden efforts to make life bearable. It truly sucked to try to mask that smell. The regular emptying of chamber pots, often directly onto the ground or into open ditches, contributed significantly to the overall unsanitary conditions around medieval castles and towns. The waste would accumulate, attracting flies, rats, and other vermin, and serving as a continuous source of disease. This practice, along with the contents of moats, a lingering stench from Moat Menace in Chapter 4, was a major factor in the spread of infections and epidemics throughout medieval society. There were no municipal waste collection services like you'd find in a modern city like, say, San Jose, California. It was every castle for itself. While chamber pots provided immediate convenience, they were also a constant source of unpleasant odors within the castle. Despite efforts to empty them regularly, a lingering smell would inevitably cling to the air in private chambers, particularly during the warmer months. The constant presence of human waste, even if contained, meant that fresh air was a rare commodity. Historians still widely debate the precise variations in chamber pot materials and designs across different social classes and regions, and whether the wealthier elite truly experienced significantly better hygienic outcomes due to more elaborate emptying procedures or the use of more odor masking techniques. Or if the fundamental problem of waste disposal remained universal. The story of the chamber pot also highlights the stark class distinctions within medieval castles. While a lord or lady might have a servant to empty their pot, a common soldier or a low-ranking servant would likely be responsible for emptying their own, or participating in a communal emptying ritual. This was a dirty, unpleasant, and often demeaning task, but utterly necessary for daily life. So, as you reflect on the medieval castle experience, remember the humble chamber pot. It wasn't glorious, it wasn't hygienic, but it was absolutely essential. It reminds us that even in the grandest of settings, basic human needs persist. And without modern plumbing, medieval people had to rely on simple, often crude, solutions that had far-reaching consequences for their health and comfort. Chamber Pot Chronicles. Nightly Necessities paints a mundane, yet crucial picture of medieval daily life. It reveals how a simple vessel became a ubiquitous tool for personal relief, transforming a basic physiological need into a routine, if still unhygienic, part of daily life. It offers a unique insight into the pragmatic, sometimes shockingly crude, realities of living in a fortified world, where comfort and cleanliness were secondary to necessity and survival, making every pot a testament to medieval pragmatism and every morning's chore a silent reminder of their enduring struggle against filth. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own modern private bathroom, your profound appreciation for flush toilets, and the secure knowledge that you don't have to empty a pot in the morning. Remember the medieval castle dweller, reaching for their chamber pot in the dead of night, their daily relief a private yet persistently unhygienic ritual, a chilling testament to the awful experience of using the bathroom in a medieval castle. Let's gently return from the intimate yet undeniably malodorous reality of Chamber Pot Chronicles' nightly necessities, where you, a modern person, grimaced at the thought of those ever-present ceramic vessels. If Chapter 5 explored the personal, portable solutions for relief, tonight we'll confront the truly grim, often stomach-churning, reality of who dealt with the accumulated waste of an entire castle. We're going to explore the stark, often horrifying, reality of the gong farmer's grit, cleaning the filth, contemplating how the existence of a specialized, deeply reviled and dangerous profession was essential for the functioning, however unsanitary, of medieval castles, transforming a necessary civic duty into a profound, often fatal, testament to human endurance and social stratification, and revealing a chilling truth that even in these grand, fortified structures, the most basic sanitation relied on the unimaginable toil and sacrifice of a forgotten few, making every emptied pit a testament to their hidden labor, and every lingering stench a silent reminder of their enduring, thankless burden. Imagine yourself, now, an individual living within the grimy, bustling outer wards of a medieval castle, not confidently watching a modern waste management crew efficiently collect refuse with specialized vehicles in, say, a sprawling suburban community in Portland, Oregon, where the work is unseen and often automated. Instead, picture yourself standing silently, fearfully, amidst the pervasive stench of raw sewage, perhaps near a churning cesspit, knowing that a specialized, deeply unfortunate individual is literally submerged in human waste, battling unimaginable filth for a meager wage. Consider yourself a knight, forced to hold your breath and avert your gaze as you pass by a designated waste pit, feeling a mixture of revulsion and grudging respect for the desperate individual toiling within. Knowing their unspeakable labor contributes directly to the basic functioning of the fortress you defend. Or perhaps a scullery maid, responsible for emptying countless chamber pots, feeling a profound, if unspoken, solidarity with the gong farmer, who takes on the ultimate, most vile task in the castle's unseen hygienic hierarchy, forcing you to acknowledge the sheer volume of human waste generated daily in the endless, thankless, and often dangerous labor of its removal, far more immediate and less personally secure than simply putting out your trash bins for weekly pickup in a modern, well-serviced apartment complex in, say, bustling San Diego, California. The hushed whispers of the castle, once a comforting sound of daily activity, now mingle with the chilling slosh of semi-liquid waste, the pervasive, sickly sweet stench of putrefaction, and the unspoken dread of contagion, thick with the pervasive anxiety of a necessary, yet utterly repugnant, labor that underpins the very existence of castle life. This is the pervasive, often terrifying, reality of the gong farmer's grit cleaning the filth, where the very essence of waste management was not about advanced technology or public health, but about raw human endurance and a willingness to confront unimaginable squalor, transforming a necessary civic duty into a profound, often fatal, testament to human grit, and revealing a chilling truth that in these fortified, majestic structures, the most basic sanitation relied on the unimaginable toil and sacrifice of a forgotten few, making every emptied pit a testament to their hidden labor, and every lingering stench a silent reminder of their enduring, thankless burden. We've talked about where the waste went down the privy shafts, into the moats, out of windows, and into chamber pots. But what happened when these collection points, particularly the cesspits at the base of the castle walls, became full? They didn't magically disappear. This is where we encounter one of the most grueling, dangerous, and utterly reviled professions of the medieval period: the gong farmer. And tonight, we delve into the gong farmer's grit cleaning the filth. It truly sucked to be a gong farmer, a job so terrible it almost defies belief. But someone had to do it. A common historical truth is that gong farmers, also known as nightmen or scavengers, were individuals specifically employed in medieval towns and castles to empty cesspits, privies, and other waste receptacles. A highly unpleasant and dangerous job due to the stench, hazardous materials, and risk of asphyxiation from toxic fumes. Historians still widely debate the social standing and specific legal protections or lack thereof afforded to gong farmers in different medieval periods and regions, and whether they were universally considered outcasts, or if their essential, albeit disgusting, service sometimes granted them a unique, if begrudging, place within the social hierarchy. Imagine yourself, now, a gong farmer, perhaps in a large, bustling medieval city like London, or a significant castle town in what would become, say, rural Pennsylvania. Your work, unlike that of a knight or a baker, was conducted almost entirely under the cover of darkness. Why? Because the stench was so overwhelming, and the work so utterly repugnant, that it was deemed unfit for daylight hours. You were truly the unsung hero, or rather, the unsmelled, hidden hero of medieval hygiene. Your primary tool, a shovel, a bucket, and an almost superhuman tolerance for filth. Your workspace. The deep, putrid cesspits located at the base of castle walls, or beneath city latrines, where centuries of human and animal waste had accumulated. These pits could be incredibly deep, sometimes 20 or 30 feet, filled with semi-liquid, decaying effluvia a persistent problem. As we recalled from Moat Menace in Chapter 4, the job itself was simple in concept, horrifying in execution. You would descend into the pit, often via a ladder or rope, and then, quite literally, wade through human excrement, shoveling it into buckets. These buckets would then be hoisted out of the pit, either by you or a small team, and transported away, usually in carts, to be dumped in designated fields outside the town or castle. Imagine the sheer physicality of this task, working in the dark, submerged in waste, every muscle aching, every breath a struggle against the overpowering stench. This wasn't just a dirty job, it was an immersive experience in raw biological decay. It truly sucked to be knee-deep in that. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed detail about the gong farmer's grit. Cleaning the filth is the curious phenomenon of the whispered wealth reports, where, despite their low social standing and the revulsion associated with their work, some gong farmers, particularly those who operated in wealthy urban centers or large castles, were rumored to occasionally discover small, valuable items, dropped coins, lost jewelry, or forgotten trinkets within the cesspits. Not as an overt means of income, which was rare and unreliable, but as a deeply personal, clandestine hope that transformed a grueling, disgusting task into a poignant, almost desperate treasure hunt, and a silent, unspoken acknowledgement of the human desire for a stroke of luck. Even in the most unsanitary and demeaning of circumstances, imagine yourself, a gong farmer, feeling the faint, unyielding touch of a small metallic object amidst the filth, your heart pounding with a fleeting hope, a deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the hidden dreams, even within the most grim realities of medieval life. It truly sucked to do that job for a living, but a tiny spark of hope might make it bearable. The dangers of being a gong farmer extended far beyond the immediate disgust. Firstly, there was the constant risk of asphyxiation from toxic fumes. As organic matter decays in an enclosed space, it releases methane, hydrogen sulfide, and ammonia, a familiar smell. As we remembered from Garderobe Grandeur in Chapter 2, these gases, particularly in high concentrations, are colorless, odorless, and deadly. Many gong farmers likely succumbed to these silent killers, simply collapsing in the pits and drowning in the waste. There were no gas masks or ventilation systems, no modern safety protocols like you'd find for a hazardous waste team in, say, suburban Houston, Texas. Secondly, there was the ever-present threat of disease. Being constantly exposed to raw human waste, teeming with bacteria, viruses, and parasites, meant gong farmers were highly susceptible to dysentery, cholera, typhoid, and countless other infections. Their bodies would have been a constant battleground against unseen pathogens, making their lives short and often miserable. This was a profession that literally dealt in death, both for others and for themselves. Historians still widely debate the precise mortality rates and specific causes of death among medieval gong farmers across different regions and time periods, and whether the primary cause of death was acute poisoning from toxic gases, chronic exposure to pathogens, or a combination of both. Given the lack of detailed medical records, the social standing of a gong farmer was, understandably, incredibly low. They were often shunned, viewed as unclean and associated with the very worst aspects of society. They were necessary, essential even, but utterly reviled. Their work was considered beneath contempt, and they lived on the fringes of society, despite performing a service that kept castles and towns from literally drowning in their own waste. Imagine the social isolation, the constant avoidance, far more pervasive than simply working a blue-collar job in a modern American city like, say, Chicago, Illinois. Yet, they persisted. Because as long as there were castles and towns without modern plumbing, there would be accumulating waste, and someone, however desperate, would take on the unspeakable task of cleaning it. Their grit, their sheer endurance in the face of such unimaginable squalor, is a testament to the harsh realities of medieval life and the desperate measures people took to survive. The gong farmer's grit, cleaning the filth, paints a truly grim, yet profoundly important, picture of medieval sanitation. It reveals how the most basic human need for waste disposal necessitated a terrifying, dangerous, and utterly thankless profession. It offers a unique insight into the pragmatic, sometimes shockingly crude, realities of living in a fortified world, where comfort and cleanliness were secondary to necessity and survival, making every emptied pit a testament to human endurance, and every lingering stench a silent reminder of their enduring, thankless burden. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own clean, fresh-smelling home, your profound appreciation for waste management services, and the secure knowledge that you will never have to wade through a cesspit. Remember the medieval gong farmer, silently toiling in the dark, submerged in the filth of others, a chilling testament to the awful experience of using the bathroom in a medieval castle. Let's gently return from the unspeakable, yet undeniably vital, reality of the gong farmer's grit. Cleaning the filth, where you, a modern person, grimaced at the thought of wading through human waste. if Chapter 6 explored the lowest rung of the castle's hygienic ladder. Tonight, we'll ascend the social hierarchy, contemplating how even the most powerful and privileged individuals within a medieval castle faced their own distinct challenges when it came to personal relief. We're going to explore the stark, often surprisingly humble, reality of royal relief privies of the elite, contemplating how the luxurious lives of kings, queens, and high-ranking nobles, while offering more privacy and slightly better convenience, were still fundamentally constrained by the absence of modern plumbing, transforming their daily necessities into a stark reminder that even immense wealth and power couldn't fully escape the ubiquitous issues of medieval sanitation, revealing a chilling truth that in these grand, fortified structures, even the loftiest individuals were tied to the same primitive waste disposal methods as their lowliest servants, making every royal privy a testament to both aspiration and unavoidable squalor. Imagine yourself, now, an individual of immense privilege within a sprawling medieval castle, not confidently stepping into a gilded marbled bathroom in, say, a modern presidential suite in Washington, D.C., complete with multiple flush toilets, elaborate showers, and perhaps even a personal spa. Instead, picture yourself standing silently, perhaps with a servant attending nearby, within a slightly larger and more private recess in the castle wall, knowing that despite your elevated status, the fundamental method of waste disposal is still a gravity-fed hole, and the pervasive castle stench, though perhaps faintly masked by perfumes, is never truly absent. Consider yourself a powerful monarch, burdened by the affairs of state, who must still pause formal proceedings to attend to basic bodily functions, finding temporary, albeit undignified, refuge in a privy that, while more comfortable, still connects directly to the same foul cesspits as everyone else's. Or perhaps a queen, accustomed to exquisite silks and fragrant oils, yet constantly battling the subtle, lingering odors that cling to her private chambers, forcing her to acknowledge the persistent battle against environmental squalor that permeates even the most opulent spaces within the seemingly majestic halls. Far more immediate and less personally secure than simply enjoying the pristine cleanliness of a private restroom, in a modern, climate-controlled mansion in, say, suburban Greenwich, Connecticut, the hushed whispers of the royal court, once a comforting sound of deference and luxury, now mingle with the chilling awareness of bodily functions, the pervasive, almost imperceptible scent of human waste, and the unspoken dread of an unsavory incident, thick with the pervasive anxiety of a constant, subtle reminder that even immense power cannot escape the basic realities of medieval hygiene. This is the pervasive, often surprisingly humble and admirous reality of royal relief privies of the elite, where the very essence of privilege was not about escaping sanitation, but about managing its unavoidable inconveniences, transforming a private act into a profound, often disgusting daily ritual for all, and revealing a chilling truth that in these fortified, majestic structures, even the most powerful individuals were tied to the same primitive waste disposal methods as their lowliest servants, making every royal privy a testament to both aspiration and unavoidable squalor. We've journeyed through the general, often disgusting, realities of waste disposal in medieval castles, from the basic holes to the specific role of the gong farmer. But what about those at the very top of the social ladder? Did kings, queens, and high-ranking nobles live in a bubble of pristine sanitation, completely divorced from the pervasive stench and grime tonight? We turn our attention to royal relief. Privies of the elite, exploring how the most privileged individuals in medieval castles manage their daily necessities, and whether their exalted status truly spared them from the grim realities of medieval hygiene. It truly sucked to be a commoner, but even royalty had their toilet troubles. A common historical truth is that while medieval monarchs and high-ranking nobles had more private and often more elaborately decorated privies garderobes within their personal chambers, these facilities still operated on the same basic principle of gravity-fed shafts, emptying into cesspits or moats, meaning they were not immune to the pervasive odors, vermin, and disease associated with medieval waste disposal. Historians still widely debate the precise level of comfort and privacy afforded by royal privies in different castles and periods, and whether the inclusion of features like fireplaces or seating arrangements genuinely improved the hygienic experience or merely provided a veneer of luxury over fundamental unsanitary conditions. Imagine yourself now a powerful king or a regal queen, perhaps within the grand, sprawling confines of a royal castle like Windsor in England, or a fictional equivalent in, say, a beautiful, sprawling estate in upstate New York. Your private chambers are lavishly decorated, perhaps with tapestries on the walls, a roaring fire in the hearth, and fine, carved furniture. You have servants to attend to your every need, and security guards posted outside your door. You wake in the morning, or perhaps during the night, feeling the familiar call of nature. Do you, the monarch, brave the cold? Dark corridors to a communal latrine? Not typically. Instead, your castle would likely feature privies, specifically integrated into your private chambers. These were still garderobes, much like the ones we discussed, a concept we touched upon in Garderobe Grandeur in Chapter 2, but they offered a higher degree of privacy and, in some cases, slightly more comfort than those used by common soldiers or servants. They would be located in a small, recessed alcove off your main bedchamber or an antechamber. Offering a private, enclosed space, these royal privies might have featured a more comfortable wooden seat, perhaps even padded with cushions. They might have had a small window for ventilation, though this would also allow cold drafts and odors to enter. Sometimes, in particularly elaborate royal castles, a small fireplace or brazier might even be situated nearby, ostensibly to provide warmth, but perhaps also to help mask the persistent smells. Imagine the luxury of a cushioned seat and a bit of warmth, a significant improvement over a cold, bare stone hole, even if the underlying mechanics were the same. However, despite these minor comforts, the fundamental mechanics of waste disposal remained identical to those of the humblest servant. The royal privy still emptied down a vertical shaft, a chilling journey we explored in the privy shaft in Chapter 3, into a cesspit, or worse, directly into the moat, a putrid reality from Moat Menace in Chapter 4. This meant that even the king or queen was not immune to the pervasive odors that permeated the castle. While their chambers might be regularly aired out, and perfumes or herbs used to mask the smell, the underlying source of the stench remained. Think about it, the air quality in a medieval castle, regardless of whose chambers you were in, was never truly fresh. The cumulative effect of hundreds, even thousands of people living in close quarters, producing waste that was inefficiently disposed of, meant that a subtle, persistent aroma of human habitation, decay, and dampness would always be present. A king might have more rosewater, but the castle still smelled like a castle. It truly sucked to be royalty and still have to deal with that smell. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed detail about royal relief privies of the elite is the curious phenomenon of the royal relief attendants, where, in some instances, high-ranking nobles or even monarchs might have had specific, dedicated servants whose primary, albeit unglamorous, duty was to attend to the royal privy, including ensuring the chamber was clean, providing fresh herbs for masking odors, or even assisting the monarch with their garments, not as an overt display of power, but as a deeply personal, clandestine service that underscored the sheer demand for personal convenience and comfort. Transforming a mundane necessity into a nuanced act of royal service, and a silent, unspoken acknowledgement of the hidden labor that facilitated even the most private moments of the elite. Imagine yourself a royal attendant, discreetly entering the privy chamber after the monarch has departed, ensuring everything is pristine, a deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the hidden lives within these grand, often demanding courts. It truly sucked to have that job, but it was a path to royal favor. Furthermore, the very act of emptying the royal chamber pots, a daily ritual we discovered in Chamber Pot Chronicles in Chapter 5, still had to happen. While a royal servant would perform this task, The waste still had to be carried through the castle, albeit perhaps along less public routes, and ultimately disposed of in the same unsanitary ways. So, while the king might not directly encounter the overflowing pit, his waste was still contributing to the overall hygienic challenges of the fortress. The architectural integration of these private privies into royal chambers also reflects a growing desire for privacy among the elite. As castles evolved from purely defensive structures to more residential palaces, the demand for personal space and comfort increased. A private privy was a significant marker of status and a testament to a shift, however gradual, towards greater personal amenity. Even within the confines of medieval limitations, historians still widely debate the precise impact of royal wealth on the overall health and longevity of monarchs compared to commoners, and whether their slightly improved privy arrangements significantly mitigated the risks of disease, or if other factors like diet, stress, and access to more varied food sources played a larger role in their relatively better health, despite their elevated status. Royalty and nobles were fundamentally tied to the same primitive waste disposal methods as everyone else in the castle. Their wealth could buy them more immediate comfort, more privacy, and more scented herbs. But it couldn't buy them a modern sewer system. This reality serves as a powerful reminder that, in the medieval period, some of life's most basic challenges transcended social class. The pervasive threat of disease, the constant battle against odors, and the fundamental absence of modern sanitation were universal experiences within the castle walls. Royal Relief Privies of the Elite offers a fascinating glimpse into the lives of medieval royalty, revealing that even immense power and privilege couldn't fully escape the ubiquitous issues of medieval sanitation. It paints a picture of pragmatic adaptations, subtle luxuries, and the enduring reality that human needs are universal, regardless of one's place on the social ladder. It offers a unique insight into the pragmatic, sometimes shockingly crude, realities of living in a fortified world, where comfort and cleanliness were secondary to necessity and survival, making every royal privy a testament to both aspiration and unavoidable squalor. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own modern, private bathroom, your profound appreciation for flush toilets, and the secure knowledge that your toilet facilities are indistinguishable from those of a monarch. Remember the medieval king or queen retreating to their slightly more comfortable privy, a chilling testament to the awful experience of using the bathroom in a medieval castle. Let's gently return from the slightly more refined, yet still undeniably primitive reality of royal relief privies of the elite, where you, a modern person, chuckled at the thought of a king's lack of modern plumbing. If Chapter 7 explored the personal hygiene of the privileged, tonight we'll shift our perspective to a far more visceral and often desperate use of castle waste as a weapon. We're going to explore the stark, often horrifying, reality of siege stench waste as a weapon, contemplating how the very accumulation of human and animal effluvia, a constant problem for castle inhabitants, could be deliberately weaponized during times of conflict, transforming an issue of sanitation into a crude, yet terrifyingly effective, instrument of war, and revealing a chilling truth that in these brutal times, every aspect of daily life, even the most disgusting, could be repurposed for tactical advantage, making every bucket of flung waste a testament to desperate ingenuity and every pervasive odor a silent, nauseating assault on the enemy's morale and health. Imagine yourself, now, an individual enduring the brutal realities of a medieval siege, not confidently observing advanced psychological warfare tactics or precision-guided munitions in, say, a modern military training exercise in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Instead, picture yourself standing silently, fearfully, amidst the grinding fear of attack, perhaps under the constant barrage of enemy projectiles, knowing that among the rocks and burning pitch, a far more insidious and disgusting form of attack is being hurled your way, disease-ridden filth. Consider yourself a besieging soldier, constantly assaulted not just by arrows and stones from the castle walls, but by the overwhelming, sickly sweet stench of putrefying waste, feeling your stomach churn and your resolve waver as the very air becomes thick with pathogens, turning every breath into a gamble. Or perhaps a beleaguered castle defender, desperately trying to maintain morale among your garrison, knowing that the enemy is deliberately attempting to sicken and demoralize your troops by launching diseased carcasses and human waste over the walls, forcing you to acknowledge the constant, unseen struggle against both physical attack and insidious biological warfare, far more immediate and less personally secure than simply dealing with a chemical spill in a modern, well-equipped hazmat suit in, say, suburban Houston, Texas. The hushed whispers of the battlefield, once a comforting sound of distant strategic planning, now mingle with the chilling thud of flung detritus, the pervasive gag-inducing odor of decay, and the unspoken dread of inevitable illness, thick with the pervasive anxiety of a constant, visible source of filth threatening to undermine both body and spirit. This is the pervasive, often terrifying, reality of siege stench waste as a weapon, where the very essence of castle waste management was not about hygiene, but about raw, desperate military advantage, transforming a mundane necessity into a profound, often disgusting instrument of warfare, and revealing a chilling truth that in these brutal times, every aspect of daily life, even the most disgusting, could be repurposed for tactical advantage, making every flung bucket of effluvia a testament to desperate ingenuity, and every pervasive odor a silent, nauseating assault on the enemy's morale and health. We've talked extensively about the challenges of disposing of waste within the castle walls. But what happened when the castle itself became a target? When besieged by an enemy army, medieval defenders found that even their most disgusting problem could be turned into a tactical advantage. Tonight, we're going to explore a truly foul, yet surprisingly effective aspect of medieval warfare: siege stench waste as a weapon. It truly sucked to be on the receiving end of this particular tactic, but it was a desperate measure born of desperate times. A common historical truth is that during medieval sieges, both besiegers and besieged forces occasionally employed crude forms of biological warfare, including catapulting diseased animal carcasses, human excrement, or other putrid materials into enemy fortifications or camps, aiming to spread disease, demoralize troops, and compromise sanitation. Historians still widely debate the actual effectiveness of these tactics in causing widespread epidemics compared to the general unsanitary conditions of medieval warfare, and whether their primary impact was psychological rather than purely biological. Imagine yourself now, not as an inhabitant within the castle, but as a soldier in a besieging army, camped outside the formidable walls of a medieval fortress, perhaps one in what would become, say, rural France. Your goal is to capture this castle. You're enduring hunger, cold, and the constant threat of sallies from the defenders. Then something else begins to assault your senses and your health. The besiegers, having endured weeks or months of stagnant camps, might be the first to realize the potential of filth as a weapon. They would use their trebuchets or catapults, massive siege engines designed to hurl heavy projectiles, not just to send rocks or burning pitch over the walls, but to launch something far more insidious: diseased animal carcasses, human excrement collected from their own camps, or other putrefying materials. Imagine the horror of seeing a rotting cow carcass soar through the air and land with a sickening thud inside your castle walls. A far cry from the precise artillery strikes of a modern army in, say, a desert training exercise in Nevada. The goal was twofold: psychological warfare and biological warfare. Firstly, the psychological impact would have been immense. Imagine the sheer disgust, the revulsion, of being constantly bombarded with rotting flesh and human waste. The pervasive stench alone would have been a form of torture, turning the air within the castle into a nauseating cloud. This wasn't just unpleasant, it was a constant, visceral reminder of the enemy's contempt and a direct assault on the defender's morale. How could you maintain your fighting spirit when every breath was a struggle against putrefaction? This was far more demoralizing than simply enduring a long, boring siege. Like waiting for a delayed flight in a crowded airport in, say, Dallas, Texas. It truly sucked to have literal garbage flung at you. Secondly, and far more lethally, there was the threat of biological warfare. The diseased carcasses and human waste were teeming with bacteria and pathogens. Once inside the castle, these would contaminate water sources, food supplies, and the very air. Flies, attracted to the filth, a persistent problem, as we recalled from Moat Menace in Chapter 4, would then spread these pathogens throughout the confined spaces of the castle. This could lead to outbreaks of dysentery, cholera, typhoid, and even plague among the besieged garrison and inhabitants. A weakened, sickened garrison was far less capable of defending the castle, turning an otherwise impregnable fortress into a death trap from within. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed, detail about siege stench waste as a weapon is the curious phenomenon of the improvised latrine weapon, where, in particularly desperate or protracted sieges, some castle defenders, unable to sally forth or lacking conventional projectiles, would resort to boiling collected human excrement and slinging the scalding, putrid mixture over the walls onto besieging forces. Not as an overt military strategy, but as a deeply personal, clandestine act of desperate resistance and a silent, unspoken acknowledgement of the human desire to fight back with any means available, transforming a desperate act of waste disposal into a poignant, almost rebellious, counter-assault that truly turned the stomach of the enemy. Imagine yourself a besieging soldier, hit by a sudden scalding splash of foul-smelling liquid, a deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the hidden desperation on both sides of a medieval siege. It truly sucked to be drenched in that. This tactic was not limited to the besiegers. Desperate castle defenders, finding themselves running low on conventional ammunition or seeking to break the enemy's resolve, might also resort to similar tactics. They could gather their own accumulated waste from cesspits, the grim domain of the gong farmer, as we learned in The Gong Farmer's Grit in Chapter 6, or even collect diseased bodies from within their walls and catapult them back at the besieging army. It was a ghastly game of biological roulette where both sides gambled on sickening the other. The use of such vile ammunition highlights the utterly brutal and often unimaginative nature of medieval warfare. It wasn't about precision, it was about overwhelming the enemy through any means necessary, even if it meant resorting to the most disgusting forms of psychological and biological assault. There were no Geneva Conventions, no rules of engagement regarding hygiene, no ethical committees like those overseeing modern warfare in, say, a diplomatic conference in Geneva, Switzerland. Historians still widely debate the overall strategic effectiveness of biological warfare tactics during medieval sieges, and whether the resulting disease outbreaks were significant enough to decisively influence the outcome of the siege, or if they primarily served as a psychological deterrent and a general contributor to the high mortality rates already prevalent in medieval military campaigns. The psychological scars of enduring such a siege would have lasted long after the siege ended. The memory of the pervasive stench, the sight of the diseased projectiles, and the fear of unseen illness would forever be etched in the minds of the survivors. It was a constant reminder that medieval warfare wasn't just about swords and arrows. It was a fight against the very environment, against disease, and against the limits of human endurance. Siege stench waste as a weapon provides a truly horrifying, yet crucial glimpse into the dark underbelly of medieval warfare. It reveals how the most disgusting problems of daily life could be deliberately repurposed into instruments of terror and disease, transforming a mundane necessity into a profound, often fatal, instrument of warfare. It offers a unique insight into the pragmatic, sometimes shockingly crude, realities of living in a fortified world, where every aspect of daily life, even the most abject, could be weaponized, making every flung bucket of effluvia a testament to desperate ingenuity, and every pervasive odor a silent, nauseating assault on the enemy's morale and health. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own safe, clean home, your profound appreciation for modern battlefield ethics, and the secure knowledge that you won't be bombarded with biological waste. Remember the medieval soldier, fighting not just against steel, but against the sickening stench of disease and decay. A chilling testament to the awful experience of using the bathroom in a medieval castle. Let's gently return from the horrifying, yet undeniably ingenious, reality of siege stench waste as a weapon, where you, a modern person, grimaced at the thought of biological projectiles. If Chapter 8 revealed the tactical uses of filth, tonight we'll broaden our scope to the general state of cleanliness within castle walls, moving beyond just human waste to the wider fight against grime, pests, and the ever-present threat of infection. We're going to explore the stark, often surprisingly primitive, reality of hygiene's harsh reality baths and bugs, contemplating how medieval castle inhabitants, despite their occasional attempts at personal cleanliness, were locked in a constant, losing battle against pervasive dirt, rampant vermin, and a profound lack of understanding about disease, transforming daily life into a continuous struggle against environmental squalor, and revealing a chilling truth that even in these grand, fortified structures, personal comfort and public health were utterly secondary to defense, making every fleeting moment of cleanliness a testament to individual effort and every persistent itch a silent reminder of their enduring invisible enemies. Imagine yourself now, an individual living within the damp, crowded confines of a medieval castle, not confidently stepping into a gleaming tiled bathroom with abundant hot water and a myriad of soaps and disinfectants in, say, a modern spa resort in Palm Springs, California. Instead, picture yourself standing silently, fearfully, amidst the pervasive stench of unwashed bodies and stale air, feeling the constant crawl of unseen creatures on your skin, knowing that a proper bath is a rare, arduous luxury, and that genuine cleanliness is an elusive dream. Consider yourself a powerful lord, accustomed to rich fabrics and fine foods, yet constantly battling fleas and lice in your intricate garments and bedding, finding temporary, albeit undignified, relief in a rare communal bath that quickly turns murky with shared grime, or perhaps a scullery maid, constantly battling the grease, grime, and pervasive vermin in the castle kitchens, where fresh water is a precious commodity and the daily struggle against filth seems utterly insurmountable, forcing you to acknowledge the constant, losing battle against microscopic enemies you cannot even perceive. Far more immediate and less personally secure than simply taking a refreshing shower and enjoying pest-free living in a modern, climate-controlled home in, say, suburban Austin, Texas. The hushed whispers of the castle, once a comforting sound of distant activity, now mingle with the chilling scritch of unseen vermin. The pervasive, almost imperceptible scent of unwashed bodies, and the unspoken dread of inevitable illness. Thick with the pervasive anxiety of a constant, pervasive battle against filth that permeates every aspect of daily life, this is the pervasive, often terrifying, reality of hygiene's harsh reality baths and bugs, where the very essence of personal cleanliness was not about comfort or prevention, but about managing unavoidable squalor, transforming a daily struggle into a profound, often disgusting testament to medieval endurance, and revealing a chilling truth that in these fortified, majestic structures, personal comfort and public health were utterly secondary to defense, making every fleeting moment of cleanliness a testament to individual effort and every persistent itch a silent reminder of their enduring, invisible enemies. We've delved deep into the specifics of waste disposal, from privies to gong farmers, and even how that waste could be weaponized. But what about general personal hygiene within a medieval castle beyond the grim reality of where human waste ended up? What was life like when it came to bathing, cleanliness, and dealing with the inevitable infestations of vermin tonight? We're going to confront hygiene's harsh reality baths and bugs. And let me tell you, it truly sucked to be a medieval person trying to stay clean. And it involved a constant losing battle against a microscopic army. A common historical truth is that medieval personal hygiene practices were far less rigorous than modern standards, with full body bathing being an infrequent and arduous affair for most, leading to widespread issues with body odor, skin conditions, and pervasive infestations of parasites like fleas and lice, which were often considered an unavoidable part of life. Historians still widely debate the precise frequency of bathing rituals across different social classes and regions, and whether the perceived lack of hygiene was primarily due to a lack of understanding about disease transmission, the practical difficulties of heating large quantities of water, or cultural attitudes towards cleanliness. Imagine yourself now, living within the damp, bustling confines of a medieval castle, perhaps one that once stood proudly in what would become, say, rural Oregon, nestled among tall forests. The concept of a daily shower or even a quick bath with running hot water, as you might enjoy in your home in, say, suburban Seattle. Washington was utterly alien. For most people, a full-body bath was a rare event, perhaps once a month or even less frequently, depending on their social status and the availability of resources. Why so infrequent? The logistics of bathing were immense. Heating enough water for a full bath was a huge undertaking, requiring vast amounts of firewood and labor. Imagine heating dozens of buckets of water over an open fire, then lugging them to a wooden tub set up in a private chamber, or a communal bathhouse. This wasn't a quick dip, it was an elaborate production, far more involved than simply turning on a faucet in a modern bathroom in, say, suburban Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. When baths did occur, they were often communal, especially for those of lower status. Imagine sharing a large wooden tub with several other people, the water quickly becoming murky and cold. Even for royalty, a bath was a significant event, often involving servants preparing the water and assisting the bather. While nobles might have had access to scented soaps made from animal fat and ash, and perhaps perfumed oils, these were for masking odors rather than truly sanitizing. The very idea of disinfecting surfaces or scrubbing away germs was centuries away. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed detail about hygiene's harsh reality baths and bugs is the curious phenomenon of the communal bathhouse hierarchy, where, in some larger medieval towns or castles with dedicated bathhouses, a subtle social hierarchy existed regarding who bathed first, with the most esteemed individuals or those willing to pay more enjoying the freshest, cleanest water, while those of lower status would follow, often bathing in increasingly murky and cooler water, not as an overt policy, but as a deeply personal, clandestine manifestation of social stratification and a silent, unspoken acknowledgement of the human desire for a semblance of cleanliness, even in a shared, primitive setting. Imagine yourself, a low-ranking soldier, waiting your turn for the bath, seeing the clear water gradually turn opaque with the grime of those who preceded you. A deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the hidden social dynamics even in the most basic acts of personal care. It truly sucked to bathe in someone else's dirty water. Beyond the infrequent baths, daily personal hygiene was rudimentary. People would often dry clean themselves, brushing off dirt and dust from their clothes and skin. Washing hands and face was more common, often with cold water and harsh lye soap. Oral hygiene was minimal, leading to widespread dental problems. The pervasive smell of unwashed bodies would have been a constant companion in any crowded medieval castle. This lack of rigorous personal cleanliness, combined with the unsanitary waste disposal methods a lingering issue from Moat Menace in Chapter 4, created an ideal environment for bugs and parasites. Fleas, lice, and bed bugs were an unavoidable, universally accepted part of medieval life. No matter your social status, you would have been sharing your body, your clothes, and your bedding with these persistent little creatures. Imagine the constant itching, the discomfort of knowing that your hair, your clothes, and even your mattress were teeming with tiny, biting insects. Medieval people used combs to try and remove lice from their hair, and would often shake out their clothes and bedding to dislodge fleas. There were no modern insecticides or pest control services, no regular delousing treatments like you might find in a public health clinic in, say, a modern city like New Orleans, Louisiana. Historians still widely debate the precise psychological impact of constant parasitic infestations on medieval people, and whether the pervasive itching and discomfort led to chronic sleep deprivation, increased stress levels, or a general desensitization to physical discomfort. Given the lack of detailed personal accounts, the presence of these bugs wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a significant health risk. Fleas, particularly, were vectors for numerous diseases, most notably the bubonic plague, as we recalled from Siege Stench in Chapter 8. The constant presence of rats and other vermin within the castle, often drawn by food scraps and waste, provided a continuous supply of flea-infested hosts. When these rats died, their fleas would seek out new hosts, humans, thereby spreading the deadly disease. It was a terrifying, unseen chain of contagion that medieval people could not comprehend. Even the most beautiful tapestries, the finest silks, and the most comfortable beds of the nobility would have been infested. Imagine a queen, reclining on her silken sheets, plagued by constant itching, utterly powerless against the unseen hordes feasting on her blood. Her royal privy, a slightly more comfortable spot, as we noted in royal relief in Chapter 7, might offer some privacy, but it offered no shield against the pervasive bugs. It truly sucked to be plagued by bugs even in a royal bed. The lack of understanding about germ theory was a major contributing factor to medieval hygiene issues. People didn't connect dirt and bugs to disease. They might associate foul smells with illness, but they didn't understand the microscopic mechanisms of contagion. This meant that even their attempts at cleanliness were often ineffective, as they didn't address the root causes of disease transmission. Hygiene's harsh reality baths and bugs paints a truly uncomfortable, yet crucial picture of daily life in a medieval castle. It reminds us that beyond the grand feasts and heroic battles, there was a constant, grueling struggle against dirt, stench, and the relentless invasion of parasites. It reveals how basic human needs and the lack of scientific understanding created a pervasive environment of unsanitation, transforming daily life into a continuous battle against environmental squalor, and offering a unique insight into the pragmatic, sometimes shockingly crude, realities of living in a fortified world, where personal comfort and public health were utterly secondary to defense, making every fleeting moment of cleanliness a testament to individual effort, and every persistent itch a silent reminder of their enduring, invisible enemies. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own clean, fresh-smelling home, your profound appreciation for hot water, soap, and modern pest control, and the secure knowledge that your bed is bug-free. Remember the medieval castle dweller, constantly itching, constantly battling the unseen horrors that shared their lives. A chilling testament to the awful experience of using the bathroom in a medieval castle. Let's gently return from the grim, yet undeniably persistent reality of hygiene's harsh reality baths and bugs, where you, a modern person, grimaced at the thought of fleas and infrequent baths. If Chapter 9 painted a picture of medieval personal cleanliness, tonight we'll bring our journey to a close by bridging the centuries, contemplating how, despite the vast chasm of time and technological advancement, our modern understanding and appreciation for sanitation are directly indebted to the horrifying lessons learned from those unsanitary medieval castles. We're going to explore the stark, often profound, contrast between the squalor of the past and the undeniable comforts of modern comforts. A grateful farewell to filth. Contemplating how the simple act of flushing a toilet or stepping into a clean bathroom represents not just technological progress, but a hard-won victory in the long, arduous human battle against disease and discomfort, making every clean surface a testament to scientific understanding and every pleasant aroma a silent triumph over historical stench. Imagine yourself now, a modern citizen, not confidently dismissing the lessons of medieval squalor as utterly irrelevant to your advanced sanitary systems in, say, a sprawling, pristine home in Silicon Valley, California, where smart toilets and air purifiers are commonplace. Instead, picture yourself standing silently, perhaps in your own bathroom, feeling a profound, almost visceral appreciation for the simple act of turning on a faucet, flushing a toilet, or inhaling clean, fresh air, knowing the unspeakable realities that came before. Consider yourself a public health advocate, constantly reminding a well-meaning but perhaps complacent public that the ongoing fight against preventable diseases and environmental contamination is a direct legacy of millennia of struggle against widespread illness and premature death. Urging vigilance even in an age of technological miracles, or perhaps a historian of technology, tracing the complex, often messy, lineage of human ingenuity from crude medieval solutions to sophisticated modern plumbing. Recognizing that every advancement, from the humble U-bend trap to vast municipal sewage systems, is built upon centuries of trial, error, and the agonizing lessons learned from past epidemics. Far more immediate and less personally secure than simply assuming modern convenience appeared out of nowhere. The confident hum of your modern home, once a comforting sound of effortless living, now seems imbued with a subtle, profound resonance of historical struggle and enduring human resilience. Thick with the silent echoes of those whose lives were defined by constant battle against filth, this is the pervasive, often profoundly humbling, reality of modern comforts. A grateful farewell to filth, where the simple amenities of daily life are not just conveniences, but monuments to centuries of human endeavor, transforming every flush, every clean surface into a silent celebration of progress, and revealing a chilling truth that the ultimate symbols of modern opportunity and personal comfort are often directly tied to the unacknowledged, agonizing struggle to escape the very squalor that defined medieval life. We've journeyed through the dark, damp, and often disgusting realities of medieval castle sanitation, from the perilous holes in the wall to the multi-purpose garderobes, the grim privy shafts, the putrid moats, the ubiquitous chamber pots, the terrifying work of the gong farmer, and the constant battle against bugs and general filth. It's been a vivid, if sometimes stomach-churning, tour. Now, as our journey nears its end, let's take a moment to step back into the present, into our own lives, and reflect on the profound, often unacknowledged blessing of modern comforts, a grateful farewell to filth. It truly sucked to live in a medieval castle, but understanding that gives us an immense appreciation for what we have. A common historical truth is that the development of modern sanitation systems, including flush toilets, sealed plumbing, and centralized sewage treatment, represents one of humanity's greatest public health achievements, directly leading to a dramatic reduction in waterborne diseases and a significant increase in life expectancy compared to historical periods like the Middle Ages. Historians and public health experts still widely debate the ongoing challenges of maintaining and expanding these systems in a rapidly urbanizing world, and whether issues like aging infrastructure, emerging contaminants, or access disparities pose new, complex threats to modern public health that echo in a different form. The challenges of the past? Imagine yourself now, in your own home, perhaps in your bathroom, right this very moment. You stand before a porcelain throne, sleek and clean. With a simple press of a handle, or perhaps a wave of your hand, a torrent of clean water rushes down, carrying away waste swiftly and silently, out of sight and out of mind. No lingering odors, no perilous drops, no chamber pot to empty in the morning, no gong farmer to call. This seemingly mundane act is, in fact, a miracle of modern engineering and public health. Consider the simple act of washing your hands. You turn a tap and clean. Hot water flows abundantly. You reach for soap, perhaps a fragrant, antibacterial liquid. You scrub, rinse, and dry on a clean towel. This ritual, repeated countless times a day without a second thought, is a direct counterpoint to the medieval struggle against grime. In a medieval castle, clean, Heated water was a precious, rare commodity, as we recalled from hygiene's harsh reality in Chapter 9. And effective soap was crude. The very idea of germ theory, of microscopic organisms causing disease, was centuries away. You are, in effect, performing a ritual that would have utterly baffled, and perhaps seemed magical to a medieval peasant or even a king. The very air you breathe in your home is likely fresh and free of the pervasive stench that clung to medieval castles. There's no constant odor of human waste wafting from a moat, a grim memory from Moat Menace in Chapter 4. No lingering smell from a rarely emptied chamber pot, a daily ritual from Chamber Pot Chronicles in Chapter 5. No subtle ammonia from a garderobe closet, a curious feature from Garderobe Grandeur in Chapter 2. The absence of these odors is not just a comfort, it's a testament to highly efficient, unseen systems that whisk away waste, manage ventilation, and prevent pest infestations. A fascinating, yet rarely discussed detail about modern comforts. A grateful farewell to filth is the curious phenomenon of phantom smells of history, where, despite being surrounded by modern cleanliness, some individuals who intensely study or immerse themselves in historical accounts of medieval life report experiencing faint, almost subconscious, phantom sensations of the historical odors, the damp stone, the pervasive waste, the unwashed bodies, not as a true hallucination, but as a deeply personal, clandestine manifestation of empathetic historical engagement and a silent, unspoken acknowledgement of the human brain's power to internalize and even simulate sensory experiences based on vivid narrative, transforming abstract knowledge into a poignant, almost visceral connection to the past. Imagine yourself a historian, momentarily catching a faint, inexplicable whiff of stale urine and damp earth while reading about a medieval castle. A deeply personal and often overlooked detail of the profound impact of historical immersion. It truly sucked to feel that, even if it was just in your mind. Our modern cities are crisscrossed by vast, intricate networks of underground pipes, silently carrying away waste to treatment plants, miles away from our homes. These plants use sophisticated biological and chemical processes to clean and purify the water before returning it to the environment. This entire infrastructure, utterly invisible to most, is the direct descendant of millennia of human struggle against disease, filth, and the sheer volume of our own waste. It's the antithesis of the simple, gravity-fed privy shaft, a harrowing descent we explored in the privy shaft in Chapter 3. The societal shift in our understanding of public health is perhaps the most profound change. We now understand germ theory. We know that clean water, proper waste disposal, and good personal hygiene are fundamental to preventing disease outbreaks. This knowledge, painstakingly accumulated over centuries, has led to dramatic increases in life expectancy and a vastly improved quality of life. The plagues that decimated medieval populations, often fueled by the very conditions we've discussed, are now largely preventable in developed nations. It truly sucked to live without that knowledge. Historians and environmental scientists still widely debate the future challenges of global sanitation, including the sustainable management of wastewater in megacities, the impact of microplastics and pharmaceutical residues in treated water, and the equitable provision of clean water and sanitation to underserved populations worldwide, suggesting that while significant progress has been made, the farewell to filth is an ongoing, complex global endeavor. So, as you lay in your comfortable bed tonight, in your clean home, breathing fresh air, take a moment to truly appreciate these modern comforts. They are not simply a given. They are the culmination of centuries of human ingenuity, scientific discovery, and societal progress. They are the grateful farewell to the perilous privies, the odorous garderobes, the putrid moats, the overflowing chamber pots, the dangerous work of the gong farmers, those brave souls from the Gong Farmer's Grit in Chapter 6, and the constant battle against bugs and disease. Every flush, every clean surface, every breath of fresh air in your home is a quiet triumph over the overwhelming squalor of the medieval past. It is a testament to how far we have come, and a reminder of the precious value of public health and sanitation as you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps feeling the quiet comfort of your own clean, fresh-smelling home, your profound appreciation for hot water, soap, and modern plumbing, and the secure knowledge that your living space is free from the constant presence of waste and vermin. Remember the medieval castle dweller, constantly battling against filth and disease, their lives defined by a grim, unsanitary reality? Be grateful for the unseen systems that protect you, for the scientific knowledge that guides us, and for the simple and profound blessing of cleanliness. May your sleep be peaceful, filled with the quiet confidence that the long, winding road of human progress, though imperfect, continues its slow, steady evolution, ever striving to leave the ancient horrors of filth firmly in the past.